The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com. Welcome back to the Sports Renegades here on SportsTownChicago.com. I'm Ryan Stuprich.
And I'm Ryan Risky.
We talked about the Cubs in our first segment, talked about the NL Cy Young going to Max Scherzer. We talked about the NL MVP going to Chris Bryant. That was announced not too long ago. And now we're going to talk about the other team, the White Sox. They did not finish very well. They finished, like 4 or 5 games under 500,
Yeah,
something
78
like that.
wins. Chris Sale was finished high in the Cy Young voting like usual.
Yes, he did.
Now, were you upset that Lester or Hendricks didn't win the Cy Young? Because there's like Cubs Twitter, people are like going crazy about it. I'm just thinking, it does. To me, I didn't think.
Yeah, I didn't really think about it. I mean, I wasn't too, upset about it, but it's just one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, it's notice it with Royals fans last year. They were upset Lorenzo Cain didn't win the Gold Glove and other things, and I was just thinking, your team won the World Series. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's nice when they win it, that they win them. I wanted them to win, except I wasn't like going to throw a hissy fit about it. I mean, I knew Bryant was probably the front runner for the MVP. Like last year, Arrieta was likely the front runner for the Cy Young. I actually thought Dave Roberts was going to win the NL Manager of the Year just because it's just a tough award to win twice.
Yeah, I thought he was going to win. It's a tough award to win twice, like you said, and since Madden won it last year. And I mean, Dave Roberts had a lot of stuff to deal with. The main thing that Madden had to deal with was the Kyle Schwarber injury, but Dave Roberts had to deal with no pitching. Clayton Kershaw out for 2.5 months, and the whole Yasiel Puig drama with as far as him being a good teammate and everything. So I mean, he had a lot of stuff to deal with, and it was his first full year as a manager.
So anyway, switching gears to the White Sox. They've got quite an offseason ahead of them. We still don't know what they're doing, if they're going to keep trying to contend or if they're going to rebuild. Rick Hahn has not tipped his hand. It seems like they likely will rebuild.
Yeah, all signs are pointing to them finally doing that, when last year they did not, obviously. It seems like, especially if you're going to get some good prospects back, like if you do a trade with Boston for either Chris Sale or Jose Quintana, or maybe both, probably not both, but if you do a sale with one of them, if it's Chris Sale, then you could get somebody like Andrew Benintendi. You could get
Michael Kopech. You're not going to get Yohan Moncada.
Probably not.
You're not getting Bogarts.
Maybe
or
for
Betts.
Sale you would, though. I don't know about Quintana.
No, you wouldn't. They're not going to trade Moncada.
But either way, I mean, you're going to get some good prospects back, and they obviously need help in the outfield. That's clear.
And the thing is,
more than the infield.
Personally, I think unless they're going to continue to try to contend, they've really failed this offseason if they don't trade one of Sale or Quintana. Just because the free agent pitching market, there is none. There's no pitching. You have 37-year-old Rich Hill. You have Jason Hamill.
Someone's going to give them a lot of money.
And Andrew Kashner. And before qualifying offers were accepted or declined, Jeremy Hellickson was scheduled to become a free agent. That's a horrible class. So
Jeremy Hellickson.
So teams are going to be getting into bidding wars for these pitchers because you're not going to really improve your rotation on the open market. You're not going to be adding, an ace-type player. And teams are going to be getting a bidding war. Someone's going to eventually overpay. And if you're the White Sox, you have to trade one of those two because you'll be getting multiple good players because you're probably going to be making a trade with either the Braves, the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Dodgers, who all have high-end talent that is moving up, who is high up in these farm systems, double, triple A, and that could impact the big league club in the near future and then give them some young talent that's, cost-controlled. So, I mean, they need to trade one of them just to replenish some of the talent that they don't have in their system.
Right. And, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have any less wins than you had last season anyway. Because, if you get some of these prospects that are ready to go and ready to play and they've already proven that they can play at the major league level, I mean, you're going to have, a good chance to have a much better offense. And, even if you don't have Chris Sale or Jose Quintana, you could still be more competitive than you were last year because of the prospects that you get in return.
Right. I mean, and you could be getting, maybe a good pitcher, a good position player, and the White Sox need position players and pitchers, and teams like the Braves, they have deep pitching in their system, who they could really just throw a couple guys in deal. They've been linked to Sale, Sonny Gray, and Chris Archer, so they seem determined to land a frontline ace.
Right, and I think it would make sense because I mean the White Sox already have some young pitching that they're not going to get rid of, like Carlos Rodon and Carson Fulmer will also be up. And there will be some other people, and you're kind of stuck with James Shields, but he's not terrible necessarily. He was bad last year, but
do you think he's going to get better?
I think he can get a little better. I'm still saying he's the number 5 pitcher on this team, but I think he's fine as a number 5, not for the money that you not for his contract. He's not being paid like a number 5, but he's acting like a number 5. So. Yeah, I think maybe with a fresh new year, he won't start off so horribly and give up like 6 home runs in a game.
The problem is he's still pitching at U.S. Cellular Field, and he's getting older.
Yeah, but of course nobody's going to take him. He's sort of stuck with the Sox.
That was a bad trade when they made it.
For a couple of years. Yeah, oh my gosh, it totally was. So yeah, I think. I don't know. If I was the White Sox, who do you think would be the more likely candidate to be traded, Jose Quintana or Chris Sale?
I'm going to assume Sale just because it seems like teams want the best guy that they have. And
I agree.
Sale will bring in probably more high-end talent. Like, I haven't heard Quintana's name in any trade rumors. And the thing is, they have Quintana under control for a few more years than Sale, so you could wait a year or two before you trade Quintana if you feel you need to. Where Sale... He's only got 3 years left on his current contract. The longer you wait, the lower quality prospects you'll be getting because the less years of control. Right now he's got 3 years of control. That's very appealing to teams.
The winter meetings start when? In like early December, I think, or mid-December?
Something like that. It's sometime after Thanksgiving.
My opinion, if you're the White Sox, you want to get that deal done either before the winter meetings or you want to get it done right at the beginning of the winter meetings because that's when the other teams are going to swoop in. There's going to be other deals, and it could all fall apart for the White Sox if they're in contact with some of these other teams that are going to take better deals, once you get to the winter meetings. So right. I think if they're trying to trade Sale, they need to do it soon.
Right. You don't want like a team like the Braves or the Yankees or the Dodgers or whoever with all the Red Sox, the Cardinals, with all this depth of talent and high-end talent.
Swoop in and steal it.
Well, you don't want someone to go and trade for a Chris Archer or a Sonny Gray, and then that's a smaller market, then you have to trade Chris Sale.
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, it's very interesting. As far as the other... some of the other needs for the White Sox, they definitely need a catcher, a stable catcher, somebody who isn't going to be there, is going to be there for a little bit. Cause
they certainly thought Omar Narvaez was that guy. They said they feel he's the catcher of the future.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
He's not.
I mean, he didn't necessarily play like it, and we haven't really ever heard of him too much. I think it's possible that he could, stay on the team as a backup or whatever, or maybe, develop him a little more. But as far as we're concerned, I mean, that's the weakest spot overall on this team.
And then you also need to factor in, what else they could do, because depending on what they get in return in a Chris Sale trade, that could definitely make a Brett Lawrie or Todd Frazier expendable if they get a middle infielder.
Yeah.
Like, if they make a trade with the Braves, they have a high-end middle infielder named Ozzie Albies, who would make Brett Lawrie expendable.
Well, at least you've heard of him. I've never heard of him.
He's a top prospect, a top 10 prospect in the game. And right there, that's your second baseman right there, so you could trade Lawrie and get some more depth in return.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
I mean, and then you also have to factor in that if you don't think you're going to contend this year, you need to trade Melky Cabrera and Todd Frazier and Brett Lawrie and get something in return, because there's no reason to hold on to them when they'll all be free agents at the end of the season. When you're not contending, you need to get something in return.
Right.
And knowing the White Sox, they might feel that they have a chance to win the World Series, and even when they're 10 games out of first place at the trade deadline next year, they'll probably feel that they still have a good chance, and then they won't trade them, and then they'll leave as free agents. And with the new CBA coming up, they might not be getting those first-round picks in return for losing free agents.
I hope they sort of figured out that that's not the route that they need to go, that they need to do it doesn't have to be a total teardown like what the Cubs and Astros did. It doesn't have to be 100%, but it needs to be like 75%.
Yeah, Sale can, if you trade a Sale and a Melky Cabrera and Brett Lowry, that could bring in enough talent that you could keep what you have, keep Quintana, keep Abreu.
And you could be
Tim
competitive
Anderson,
almost right away.
Still have Carlos Rodon and Carson Fulmer. You could still have enough talent on the team, and you still have Adam Eaton, and then you have to decide what you're going to do with Avisail Garcia.
Right.
Because you should not be trying to develop a young player as a designated hitter.
Right. And take a look at the Cubs as an example. I know the White Sox fans don't like to hear that. Take a look at the Cubs as an example. But all 5 of their starters were not in the Cubs organization. They were all acquired. So, it's very interesting. So, you don't really – and I know the Sox already went this route because they always like to have their good starting pitching in their farm system and bring them up. But – you don't necessarily need that to compete. What you need is a good offense, too, and then you sort of buy your pitching. The Sox are kind of far away from that, like a couple years down the road. But, you can buy your pitching, especially when the free agent market is good, like it was a few years ago for the Cubs.
Well, that's a yes and no, because you don't want to be getting stuck with too many long-term deals, like when there was all the rumors the Cubs would sign Scherzer and Lester in that offseason, and Theo Epstein that said that's absurd. We're not handing out 2 of those kind of contracts.
Yeah, they would not.
You don't want to really be buying things where you can add key pieces on big contracts, like the Cubs added Lester and Hayward and Zobrist, except you don't want to just be relying on free agency, because that's what's going to
That's what I mean. I didn't mean like to buy all your pitching. I meant like one guy, sort of like what the Cubs did.
Yeah, you can maybe sign one guy in free agency. Where the Cubs, they got Hendricks in a trade, then they developed him. They got Arrieta in a trade. They signed Lester. They signed Hamill as a free agent twice and turned him into Addison Russell the first time.
Yeah, I know.
Well, him and Samardzija into Addison Russell, and they signed Lackey as a free agent to try to bolster the back end of it, on a short 2-year deal. You don't want to be handing out all these mega 6-7-year contracts, and at the end of this next season, they're going to have to decide what they want to do with guys like Arrieta, because you'll have money freed up, because Lackey's $16 million will be off the books, Montero's $13 million will be off the books. This year, you've already got Edwin Jackson's salary off the books.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what the White Sox do. I hope they don't let the fans down and still think that they can fully compete with sort of the team that they have. And if they're trying to keep Sale and Quintana, then, they've already failed. So
exactly. You got to gauge the market and see if you can get something good in return, because you probably will, considering the fact that there's no pitchers on the free agent market. You've got to be aggressive on the trade market.
And I don't care if it pisses Sale off. I don't care if he yells and complains about it to Kenny Williams like he did about the jerseys and like he did in spring training about things, and like he's done. He's got an attitude problem, and he's a great pitcher, and somebody will take him for the right type of deal. But you shouldn't be concerned about his feelings at this point, and I hope Kenny Williams or Rick Hahn aren't. So we're going to take a break, and we'll come back, starting off the second hour. I guess we'll either talk about the White Sox or talk about the Bears. We'll continue either way, and then also coming up will be our picks for, I think this is week 11 in the NFL. I'm not exactly sure if it's 10 or 11, but we will also give our picks, and we'll update who's winning in that as well. So you're listening to the Sports Renegades on SportsTownChicago.com. The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com.